Two men who spent nearly 2 decades trying to defeat each other on every tennis court in the world suddenly found themselves sitting side by side. No crowd, no rivalry, just one table, one pen, and one decision. And that decision carried a number that shocked everyone. $50 million. Not for a tournament, not for a stadium, not even for a global brand campaign. It was for a 20-year-old girl from the Philippines, a name that, until recently, most of the world hadn't even heard. But now, it's impossible to ignore. Her name is Alex Eala, and by the time you fully understand the story, you'll realize why the entire tennis world has been turned upside down. This story doesn't begin in Miami. It begins years earlier, with a young girl stepping into a place that would shape everything that followed. Imagine being just 12 years old, arriving in Spain with nothing but 2 rackets, your brother by your side, and a dream so big it almost sounded unrealistic. She didn't come from a country known for producing tennis champions. In fact, no player from her nation had ever reached the top 100 in professional tennis history. But she didn't care about history. She came to change it. From the moment she stepped onto the courts at the academy, something stood out. It wasn't just her technique or movement. Coaches noticed something deeper, a calmness under pressure that most players take years to develop. If they ever do, it was as if the moment never overwhelmed her. Instead, she absorbed it. Success didn't take long to follow. At just 14, she claimed a junior Grand Slam doubles title, then another. But the real moment came in 2022. At 17 years old, she walked onto one of the biggest stages in junior tennis and did something no one from her country had ever done before. She won a Grand Slam singles title. Clean, confident, dominant. For a brief moment, the tennis world noticed. But junior success is only the beginning. The real test starts when the spotlight fades and the grind begins. Turning professional is where dreams either evolve into reality or quietly disappear. There are no cameras following you in the early stages. No headlines, just long travel days, small tournaments, and matches played in front of almost empty stands. It's where talent meets reality. And this is where Alex proved she was different. She didn't rush. She didn't chase attention. She built her career the way strong foundations are built. Slowly, carefully, one win at a time. Her first professional title came early, followed by another and then another. Each victory wasn't loud, but it mattered. Each one added a layer to something bigger. By the start of 2025, her ranking stood at 143 in the world, a solid position, but far from global stardom. Outside her home country, very few people were paying attention, but inside the Philippines, she had already become something much bigger, a symbol. Brands had believed in her early, long before the headlines, long before the rankings. She wasn't just another athlete. They saw something unique. But even they didn't fully understand what was coming, because everything was about to change. And it would change in a way no one expected. Entering a major tournament at that ranking doesn't come with expectations. It comes with limitations. You're not supposed to win. You're not even supposed to stay long. The draw is filled with champions, experienced players, and names that dominate headlines. You're there to lose quietly. But no one told Alex that. Her first match? A Grand Slam champion. Gone. Next match? One of the best players in the world. Gone. Now the whispers started. People weren't just asking who she was anymore. They were asking how she was doing it. And then came the moment that changed everything. Across the net stood one of the most dominant players in modern tennis. A name that represented consistency, power, and near perfection. This was supposed to be the end of the run. But it wasn't. What happened next didn't feel like an upset. It felt like something far more dangerous. A statement. She didn't just compete. She controlled the match. She won in straight sets. And in that moment, the entire tennis world stopped and looked in one direction. Because this wasn't luck anymore. This was a rival. After the match, when asked how she felt, she didn't celebrate wildly. She didn't lose herself in the moment. She simply smiled and said something that revealed everything about her mindset. Her level was there, but she still had work to do. And that one sentence told the world something important. this was only the beginning. That 1 week didn't just change her ranking. It changed her identity in the sport. In a matter of days, she went from being a promising player to becoming one of the most talked about names in tennis. Her ranking jumped massively, breaking into the top tier for the first time in her country's history. Social media exploded. Interviews, headlines, analysts, everyone suddenly wanted to understand who she was. But what made it different wasn't just the results. It was the way she handled them. There was no arrogance, no sudden shift in attitude, no emotional overflow. Just the same calm presence, the same quiet confidence that had been there from the beginning. While the world was reacting loudly, she remained steady. And that's exactly what caught the attention of people who matter the most. Far away from the noise of Miami, in completely different parts of the world, two men were watching closely, not as fans, not as commentators, but as individuals who understood something deeper about greatness. Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal. These are not just legends of the game. They are two of the most successful athletes in history, not only because of what they achieved on the court, but because of what they built beyond it. After retirement, both of them transitioned into something far bigger than tennis. Federer, known for his precision and elegance, approached business the same way he approached the game, with patience and perfect timing. He didn't rush into opportunities. He chose them carefully. Investments, partnerships, brand expansions, everything was calculated. And over time, those decisions turned into something massive. Nadal, on the other hand, built his legacy through structure and development. His academy became more than just a training center. It became a system, a place where talent is shaped, discipline is built, and champions are created. And somewhere within that system, years ago, a young girl was learning. They had both seen talent before. They had both seen potential. But this felt different, because what they were seeing now wasn't just talent. It was timing. After Miami, Alex didn't slow down. Instead, she carried that momentum forward into the rest of the season. She reached her first major final on a surface that doesn't typically favor players like her. Grass courts are unpredictable, fast, and often dominated by powerful servers. But she adapted. She fought through matches that tested not just her skill, but her endurance, long rallies, pressure moments, comebacks. It was all there, and each time, she showed something that cannot be taught easily: composure. Then came one of the most defining moments of her career, a match where she was on the edge of losing, down, almost out, with very little room to recover. Most players in that situation begin to fade, but she didn't. Point by point, she fought back. Game by game, she rebuilt momentum. And eventually, she turned what looked like a certain defeat into one of the most memorable wins of her journey. That match didn't just prove her ability. It proved her mentality. By the end of the year, the numbers told their own story. A massive rise in rankings. A breakthrough into levels no one from her country had ever reached. Titles, finals, and performances that forced the entire tennis world to take her seriously. But even numbers don't fully explain what was happening, because something bigger was forming. A connection between performance and market, between talent and global reach, between story and value. And that's exactly where Federer and Nadal come in. See, most people think success in sports is only about winning matches. But at the highest level, it's also about something else: impact, influence, the ability to connect with millions of people beyond the court. Alex had that. Her story wasn't just about tennis. It represented something much larger. A new region, a new audience, a new wave of fans entering the sport through her journey. Southeast Asia, with its massive population and growing interest in sports, suddenly had someone to follow, someone relatable, someone real. And for two businessmen who had built their empires by understanding value before the world catches up, this was impossible to ignore. Federer understood narratives. He knew that the strongest brands are built on authentic stories. Nadal understood development. He had seen her grow from the inside, long before the world even noticed her name. So when they looked at Alex, they weren't just seeing a player. They were seeing the future. And for the first time in their lives, after years of rivalry, they agreed on something completely. This is the one. But what they did next wasn't normal. It wasn't a sponsorship. It wasn't a simple endorsement. It was something much bigger. Something that would completely change how athletes are supported, built, and scaled in the modern era. And when the details started coming out, the entire tennis business world was left stunned. What happened next confused a lot of people at first, because this wasn't a traditional move. This wasn't a brand signing a young athlete to wear their logo. It wasn't a short-term sponsorship built around performance bonuses or seasonal campaigns. It was something far more strategic, far more calculated. They didn't just support her, they invested in her. When news started spreading about a combined $50 million commitment, the first reaction across the tennis world was disbelief. Why would two of the greatest players in history make such a massive move for someone so early in her career? But when you look closer, it begins to make sense. This deal wasn't about matches. It was about ownership. Instead of paying her to promote something, they positioned themselves alongside her growth. Think about it like building a company. You don't just advertise it. You become part of it. You grow with it. You benefit as it expands. That's exactly what this was. The structure behind the deal focused on multiple layers: brand building, media presence, content creation, strategic endorsements, and most importantly, expansion into markets that are still developing in the world of tennis. Because the real opportunity here isn't just a performance. It's where she comes from. The Philippines alone represents millions of potential new fans. But beyond that, Southeast Asia is one of the fastest growing regions in global sports consumption. A massive audience that hasn't been fully connected to tennis in the same way as Europe or the United States. Now suddenly they have someone to follow, someone who represents them. And that changes everything. For Nadal, this move carries an even deeper meaning. This isn't just an investment. It's personal. He watched her grow inside his own academy. He saw her train, struggle, improve, and evolve over the years. For him, this is proof. Proof that the system he built works, that it produces real champions. For Federer, this is another example of timing. Throughout his career, he has shown an incredible ability to identify value before it becomes obvious. He understands that the biggest returns don't come when something is already popular. They come when you see it early, and act early. Together, they saw something that most people missed. Not just a player, a long-term story. For Alex, the meaning of this moment goes far beyond money, because what this really represents is belief. The kind of belief that cannot be faked. Two of the most respected figures in the sport looked at her and decided she was worth building around. Not for a season, not for a headline, but for an entire career. And the timing of it all makes it even more powerful. She is still incredibly young, still developing, still learning, yet already achieving things that had never been done before in her country. Her rise in rankings has been rapid, but not rushed. Every step has been earned. Every moment has been built. And that's what makes this different from hype. This is structure. This is foundation. This is what happens when talent meets preparation and then meets opportunity at exactly the right time. Because let's look at the reality. In just over a year, she has climbed dramatically in the global rankings. She has defeated some of the biggest names in the sport. She has proven that she can perform under pressure, adapt across surfaces, and compete at the highest level. And yet, she's still just getting started. That's the part that should make everyone pay attention. Because if this is the beginning, what does the peak look like? What happens when experience catches up with her ability? What happens when she plays a full season at this level? With the support, structure, and resources now behind her, that's the real story. This isn't a fairy tale. It doesn't feel like luck. It feels like a blueprint. A clear example of how modern sports are evolving, where athletes are no longer just competitors, but complete brands. Where success is built not only on performance, but on identity, connection, and long-term vision. And right now, Alex Eala stands at the center of that shift. From a 12-year-old girl with a dream that seemed too big, to a 20-year-old athlete backed by two legends who understand exactly what greatness looks like. Her journey is far from finished. In fact, it has barely begun. And if everything continues the way it has so far, we're not just watching a rising star. We're watching the start of something historic.